"You can't come to the funeral," Roger said, his voice sharp with finality when he heard about his father's passing after a long illness. What kind of wife skips her father-in-law's funeral? Despite my objections, Roger stood his ground, and I couldn't grasp why. On the day of the funeral, I couldn't stay away and went to observe discreetly. There, I saw Roger seated with a woman I didn't recognize at the family's side. I was stunned and puzzled, wondering who she was and what was happening. The truth that would soon unfold was even more shocking than I could have imagined. I'm Catherine, 30 years old. I've been married to Roger, a 35-year-old office worker, for 3 years now. We don't have children yet. Roger's work often takes him away, leaving him home only about 3 days a week. During his absences, I immerse myself in drawing comics. On his days off, we enjoy shopping, watching movies, and making the most of our time together. Roger's mother passed away when he was a child, leaving his father to raise him and his sister, Sarah, on his own. In the early days of our marriage, we often made the 2-hour drive to visit Roger's family. However, as his father's health declined over the past year, our visits became less frequent. Roger explained, "Doug doesn't want you to see him like this, so I refrained from visiting as his condition worsened." One evening, after Roger returned from work, his phone rang. "Oh, Dad's passed away," he said, his voice flat as he relayed the news. I stopped preparing dinner, and Roger sighed deeply after ending the call. "Was that real? Did you hear that? His condition must have deteriorated suddenly." It was his Uncle Terry who had called. The news of Roger's father's death came swiftly, and Uncle Terry hadn't even had time to contact Roger beforehand. The funeral was scheduled for the day after tomorrow, and Roger was clearly unsettled by the sudden turn of events. As I watched him with concern, I gently suggested, "I'll come with you to the funeral." "No, you absolutely can't come," Roger responded firmly. "Huh? Why?" "It's only natural that I should go," I protested. "Just be quiet and do as I say," Roger snapped, storming off to his room to hastily pack a suit and a change of clothes. "But why? Can you at least tell me why?" "Enough. I'm staying at my parents' house until the funeral. Just remember, you're not coming." "Hold on a minute." Ignoring my pleas, Roger left the house in a hurry. It seemed only right for me to attend my father-in-law's funeral, so why was it forbidden? I was left feeling frustrated and bewildered. Determined to understand, I decided to find out where the funeral was being held. I called my sister-in-law Sarah, who I rarely spoke to, but her tone was unexpectedly distant. "How do you know about our father's death, Catherine?" she asked. "I heard it from Roger." It's surprising that he's already contacted you," Sarah said, her voice laced with confusion. Our conversation felt disjointed, but I was too focused on attending the funeral to worry about it. Despite Roger's instructions, I was determined to say my final goodbye. "I understand, but it's important for me to be there," I pleaded. "My father-in-law has passed away. I need to be there." After a brief silence, Sarah agreed, "All right, but you must keep this between us, okay?" She then provided me with the location and time of the funeral but instructed, "Arrive after the service has started and find a seat where you won't draw attention." I didn't fully understand why I was being kept in the shadows, but I managed to arrange bereavement leave from work and prepared to go. Following Sarah's advice, I arrived at the funeral a bit late. To my surprise, I saw an unfamiliar woman seated next to Roger in the chief mourner's spot. Who is she? Why is she sitting next to my husband? In a daze, unsure of what was unfolding, I quietly took a seat in the back row of the venue. As I settled in, I overheard whispers from the seats in front of me. "Is that woman Roger's new wife, Lucy?" one person asked. Poor Roger. His ex-wife apparently left him with divorce papers and vanished, another voice said. I also caught snippets of other murmurs suggesting I might be having an affair or in financial trouble. The shock of these revelations left me feeling weak and my heart raced. I had never filed for divorce, nor had we ever discussed separation. What was this remarriage about? The situation was becoming clearer as I pieced together the rumors. The woman sitting next to Roger appeared to be in her early 20s and frequently touched her noticeably rounded belly, even though her funeral attire was loose. When it was finally my turn to pay my respects, I stood up. The previously hushed atmosphere of the room began to buzz with murmurs. She really had the nerve to show up. How insensitive, I heard as I slowly made my way to the row where Roger was seated. When Roger's gaze met mine, his face went pale, and he looked visibly shaken, but his new wife seemed completely unaware of his distress. I finished paying my respects and, eager to escape Roger's penetrating stare, left the funeral home quickly. I headed straight to City Hall, where I retrieved my copy of the family register. It showed a deregistration indicating that our divorce had been finalized 5 months ago. My hands shook with anger, and my mind felt numb. How could he have filed for divorce and remarried without my knowledge? I was determined to make him pay for this betrayal. Even after several days, Roger did not return home, and there was no communication from him. Hadn't he said he would stay at his parents' house until the funeral was over? I wanted to confront him, but I decided to wait and see what he would do next. Why would he go through a secret divorce and remarry while still living with me? There had to be more to this story. Reflecting on Roger's past actions, a realization struck me, and I quickly turned on my computer. I recalled him typing away at a blog late into the night. As I sifted through his browsing history, I found a blog titled Roger the Dragon King's Wild Diary. The blog didn't show any pictures of Roger's face, but it did feature photos of his car and our home, confirming it was his. As I read through his posts, it became clear that he had been meticulously planning something, and my anger surged with each detail I uncovered. That's it, I thought, hatching a brilliant plan to get back at Roger. I called my sister-in-law Sarah and another accomplice, preparing carefully. I couldn't wait to see Roger's reaction on the day of the operation. On the appointed day, I stood in front of the house Roger shared with his new wife, Lucy. After a while, a delivery truck arrived, and the delivery man began unloading a pile of packages. Lucy stepped out of the house, her voice rising in confusion. "What the hell is this? Whose packages are these? Hey, darling!" Roger emerged from the house, his eyes widening in shock at the sight of the boxes. "What's going on?" he asked, leaning in to read the sender's name. As he saw it, he started acting suspiciously, spreading his arms to obscure the packages. Well, of course he would, I thought. With the sender listed as ex-wife Hart, Roger couldn't possibly stay calm. Lucy's voice grew louder. "Ex-wife? What's this about? I had no idea." Roger didn't answer. Instead, he quickly paid the delivery fee of $200. As he turned to face me, hidden in the shadows of a nearby lamppost, our eyes met. "Hey, you, what are you doing here?" "I got your address from your sister, Sarah," I replied. I then turned to Lucy, who was watching us with confusion, and gave her a friendly smile. "Hi, Lucy. I'm Catherine, Roger's ex-wife. I sent these packages. I'm sorry to surprise you like this. Roger filed for divorce 5 months ago without telling me." I showed Lucy our marriage certificate, which took her by surprise. She then invited me inside, suggesting we discuss things without causing a scene outside. Once in the living room, I ignored my trembling husband next to Lucy and addressed her directly. "Lucy, when did you start dating Roger?" "About a year ago. He told me he was single," Lucy said. "I can't believe this," I replied, struggling to process the situation. That's quite something. So he's been deceiving both of us, I said, noting Roger's casual demeanor. Come on, don't make such a big deal out of it. It's just a misunderstanding, right? Roger laughed, his lack of remorse evident. I was taken aback by his nonchalant attitude. It's unacceptable that you filed for divorce without my consent. I'm suing you for $30,000 in alimony. You've been unfaithful, so it's only fair. Why should I have to pay that? Roger protested, his anger rising. Meanwhile, Lucy remained surprisingly calm, unaffected by the escalating argument. Well, don't be so stingy, just pay her, darling. After all, you're the boss, so $30,000 shouldn't be a big deal, right? I couldn't help but burst into laughter at Lucy's comment. She looked at me, puzzled. Who's the boss? Roger's been lying about that too. Lucy, he's just an ordinary office worker. Who? What? Roger, what's going on? Lucy demanded, her confusion growing as Roger, sweating and clearly flustered, began to make excuses. Lucy, I'm sorry for the lies. When my father died, I thought I'd come into a lot of money. His absurdity only made me laugh bitterly. From his blog, it was clear Roger was deluded into thinking he'd inherit a fortune from his father's death. He had fabricated a story about his identity to his mistress, got her pregnant, and eagerly documented his plan to divorce me unilaterally. As I slammed the printed pages of his blog onto the table, the doorbell rang. Roger opened the door to find his Uncle Terry standing there. There's no way you'd inherit anything, you fool. In fact, Terry was the other person I had contacted, aside from Sarah. Before arriving at Roger and Lucy's house, I had called Terry on my cell phone and had him listen to our entire conversation. You told our family that Catherine left you after having an affair and filed for divorce, didn't you? Roger faltered, clearly unable to fabricate a convincing excuse, and began to get defensive. That's not entirely. Just because you've made up a story doesn't mean you're entitled to inherit anything. You've been disinherited. It's got nothing to do with the estate. Huh? What are you talking about? According to Terry, Roger had persistently demanded money from my in-laws. When my father-in-law refused, Roger would insult him and sometimes even resort to physical abuse. Realizing his end was near, my father-in-law had preemptively disinherited Roger. Wait a minute, so you're saying I'm not getting any of the inheritance? I have debts because I was relying on my father's money. What am I supposed to do? That's what you deserve, I said, feeling a grim satisfaction. If your father wanted you to become a responsible person, that's why he decided not to give you any money. Can't you understand his reasoning? So give me the inheritance, and I'll become more responsible, Roger pleaded, his desperation evident. The more Roger spoke, the more my disgust grew, and it seemed Lucy shared my sentiments. You told me you were a CEO. That's why I got involved with you. I have no interest in a broke man, Lucy said with disdain. Lucy, please don't say that. The baby's about to be born, Roger begged. Lucy sighed heavily and glared at Roger. I'll give birth and raise the child on my own. All I need from you is alimony and child support. Lucy, please forgive me, Roger sobbed, but I wasn't about to show him any mercy. And you'll also owe me alimony, I added firmly. That's impossible. I don't have that kind of money, Roger said, his voice tinged with desperation. Oh, I got it, Catherine. Let's try again, he proposed, his audacity clear. What? You had the nerve to file for divorce and now you want to remarry? I was incredulous. Please, I'm begging you. We can work together to repay the debt, Roger pleaded. Are you serious? Infuriated by Roger's selfishness, I shook him off and stormed out of the house with Terry. Shortly after, Lucy served Roger with divorce papers, demanding $20,000 in alimony and $500 a month in child support. My sister-in-law Sarah informed me that, in addition to the $30,000 in alimony I had demanded, Roger was overwhelmed with debt from the mortgage on the house he shared with Lucy. He was reportedly working tirelessly from dawn till dusk to keep up with his financial obligations. Meanwhile, I was reveling in my newfound freedom. Sarah, who was once my sister-in-law, and I have become close friends, and when she stays over, we have a blast catching up and chatting. To add to my joy, a comic strip I created based on my ex-husband's blog posts has gone viral on social media. I'm thrilled to be preparing it for publication, with excitement building as I brainstorm potential titles for the comic. I'm thoroughly enjoying my new, carefree life.
I'll never forget the shock of bumping into my husband at a friend's baby shower. It seemed Jessica was unaware that Kyle and I were married, let alone that they had a child together. "I envy how happy you two seem," I said awkwardly, feeling like the odd one out in our once close trio. Jessica beamed. Kyle nodded awkwardly. But I knew the truth. I knew Kyle well enough to know he'd say things like pregnancy isn't an illness, so don't be lazy, offering no help to his pregnant wife. The fact that he would cheat on me with our best friend was unforgivable. My resolve was set. I would make Kyle lose everything. My name is Ashley, a beautician in a cozy regional city where I was born and raised. It's not as flashy as downtown, but it's home with a strong sense of community. Kyle and I were high school classmates, known as the couple everyone expected to marry. When people asked about Kyle, I always knew where he was, which led to teasing about being a good future wife. Jessica, another member of our trio, was always dreaming of going abroad, immersed in music and distant aspirations. She excelled academically and eventually studied overseas. After graduation, our contact dwindled to sporadic emails. Meanwhile, I pursued my passion for beauty, attending vocational school, and joining my family's salon. Kyle attended a local university and joined his family's beauty product business, which partnered with my family's salon, fueling gossip about our relationship. Quiet and reserved, Kyle was the opposite of me, yet we somehow clicked. Our relationship evolved naturally from high school, culminating in marriage without a formal proposal. We bought a spacious house and embarked on our new life. When I joyfully announced my pregnancy, expecting Kyle's happiness, his indifference stung. "Oh, is that so? Aren't you happy?" he replied, absorbed in his phone. Disappointed, I faced a tough pregnancy, forced to take early maternity leave due to health issues. Kyle's lack of empathy surfaced as he cited maternity leave regulations and criticized my reduced workload. "Pregnancy isn't an illness," he'd say callously, expecting me to maintain household chores despite my health challenges. Raised in a household where men didn't do housework, Kyle was clueless about domestic tasks, adding to my frustration. His disregard for my needs and his insensitive remarks about my pregnancy drove a wedge between us. As I navigated these challenges, Kyle's attitude worsened, leaving me feeling isolated and resentful. His habit of belittling me and prioritizing his comfort over my well-being pushed me to a breaking point. I attempted to excuse myself, saying I needed to use the bathroom, but he snapped, "I'm not done talking yet." Enduring his lengthy lecture, I'd barely made it to the bathroom in time. From behind me, I could hear Kyle's mocking comment, "That's so uncool." When we first married, I found Kyle's calm demeanor appealing. But since becoming pregnant, everything seemed to backfire. Instead of supporting me, he compared me to various cases he read about online. That celebrity returned to work immediately after giving birth and looked perfect. "You'll be the same, right?" "I don't know. Don't compare me so easily to such incredible people. We're both human," I replied, feeling the weight of Kyle's high expectations. He easily believed dubious information from the internet, turning our conversations into unpleasant arguments. Around the same time I got pregnant, Kyle started spending less time at home. Arguments like these were part of the reason, but he also began going out at night and on weekends, claiming it was for work. This new behavior was unlike our previous life together and far from the involved father figure society now expects. One night, when Kyle came home late, I decided to confront him. "You've been busy with work recently, haven't you?" I'm trying to attract new clients. It's none of your business, he retorted sharply. But Kyle, have you been drinking? This isn't like you. This is part of my job now. Stop nagging, he replied loudly enough that the neighbors could probably hear. I could smell alcohol on his breath, a stark contrast to how he had been before. You never had to drink for work before. What's going on? You wouldn't understand. Basically, you are. His words trailed off into another round of sarcastic remarks, leaving me frustrated and uncertain about our future. I work hard every day, and all you do is lay around at home. This doesn't make working worthwhile, Kyle accused, his voice filled with frustration. I'm not just lazing around. I'm quite busy preparing for the birth, I defended myself, struggling to hold back tears. That's no excuse to neglect housework. You hardly put on makeup anymore. It's like you're giving up on being a woman just because you're pregnant, he continued, his words cutting deep. Holding back tears that threatened to spill, I turned to put Kyle's bag back on the shelf. As I did, a small object fell to the floor with a clink. What's this? I asked, picking up the wireless earbuds casually and examining them. They were small, shaped like earrings in a cute pink color that seemed designed to appeal to women. Don't you dare touch my bag without permission. That's an invasion of privacy, Kyle snapped sharply. It's not unusual for me to do this, but Kyle, you don't usually use earbuds. Are these someone else's? We should probably return them, I suggested calmly. That's for me to worry about. Just focus on your housework. Why can't you even get that right? Kyle's reaction was unexpectedly intense for simply pointing out a lost item. As I opened my mouth to speak further, I felt a dull impact on my stomach. Kyle had kicked me. Don't forget that you're being supported by me. If you keep interfering, I'll have to reconsider things, he threatened before storming off to his room. Confused and hurt, I couldn't comprehend what had just happened. Tears finally escaped as I stood there, feeling alone and unsure about our future. I sat on the floor, stunned, replaying the recent events in my mind. It didn't make sense why I deserved to be kicked. Kyle's reaction was incomprehensible to me. The next day, for safety's sake, I went to the hospital to check on my stomach. I couldn't bring myself to admit that my husband had kicked me, so I lied, saying I had fallen at home. Fortunately, the baby was fine, but the area where I had been kicked was bruised and sore. Amidst this turmoil, some good news arrived. My best friend Jessica had given birth. I knew she had studied abroad and found a job there, but apparently, she had returned to the US. I had hoped to bring Kyle along for a reunion of our close trio, but he was away on a business trip. Reluctantly, I went alone to congratulate her. In her bright hospital room, Jessica lay on the bed with a relieved expression. As I entered, she managed to sit up slightly. It's been so long. Congratulations on the birth, I greeted her. Thank you. I actually came back to the US about a year ago but couldn't contact you. I'm sorry. I'm just glad the baby was born safely, Jessica replied, looking more polished and mature than during our student days. Beside her pillow lay the same earbuds I had found in Kyle's belongings. She seemed to notice my gaze. Oh, these? They're my favorite. I lost one the other day, but my boyfriend found it for me. Really? What's your husband like? I asked, curious. We haven't registered our marriage yet. Actually, he is. Her words were interrupted by a knock on the door. To my surprise, Kyle entered the room. I was too shocked to say anything. Surprise, right? I'm currently dating Kyle, Jessica announced casually, unaware that Kyle and I were married, innocently smiling at me. Hey, welcome. Long time no see, Kyle greeted, his nonchalant attitude heightening my confusion. It's a reunion of our close trio. I started seeing Kyle again after returning to the US. We're planning to get married, but we've been busy with paperwork. I see. Actually, as you can see, I'm pregnant too, I replied calmly, feeling overwhelmed but determined to protect myself and my child. I pondered the best way to handle the situation. I must protect this child and myself, I reminded myself. My husband is away on business now. I really wanted to bring him today, but I couldn't, I added, feeling a pang of regret. That's a shame. I wanted to meet Ashley's husband, Jessica commented. It really is a pity, but having a husband like yours who accompanies you is definitely better. My boyfriend hardly helps at all. I glared at Kyle discreetly, but he deliberately looked away. You two look so happy together, Jessica remarked, oblivious to the tension. Only one left out of our close-knit trio, Jessica, Kyle. I hope you'll always be happy, no matter what, I said, trying to maintain a composed demeanor. Jessica nodded with a beaming smile, while Kyle nodded awkwardly. "Oh, this is for the baby shower. I heard bids are always useful, so I bought some," Jessica said, changing the subject, offering the gift with a warm gesture. "I even got matching ones for my baby. They're cute." "Thank you," Jessica exclaimed happily. "You must be excited for your baby too, Ashley." "Yes, once I have a healthy baby, we should all go out together," I replied warmly. At the mention of all, Kyle's shoulders twitched. I pretended not to notice and smiled brightly. "By the way, can we take a photo?" Jessica asked suddenly. She held the baby and Kyle stood next to her. I forced a smile and agreed. After the photo, I excused myself from the hospital room. Before I knew it, my breathing became ragged and my shoulders heaved. Beyond the door, I could hear Jessica's excited voice and Kyle's low responses. Leaving the hospital, I rushed home. Opening my phone, I contacted a real estate agent immediately. "Hello, I know this is sudden, but I want to sell my house," I explained urgently. "Yes, you can list it right away. I'll complete the paperwork quickly. Also, could you recommend a moving company?" I asked, arranging everything swiftly through the agent's connections. Next, I called Kyle's mother. "Due to an urgent situation with Kyle, I'm sending some belongings your way. There will be a lot, so please don't be surprised," I informed her, deciding to erase any trace of our shared home. Kyle had mentioned he would be on a business trip until tomorrow, likely planning to stay elsewhere tonight. Though I wanted to send his belongings directly to his parents' house, I hesitated not to shock my mother-in-law. At least informing her was the least I could do. After finalizing these arrangements, I noticed a series of missed calls from Kyle. In fact, he had been trying to reach me continuously since I left the hospital. Ignoring the calls, I calmly drank water. Then a message appeared. "Let's talk things over, just the two of us." But what was there to discuss in this state? Moreover, after being kicked in the stomach, my wariness of Kyle had transformed into deep distrust, and I couldn't bear to hear his voice anymore. Immediately upon arriving home, I began packing. I entered Kyle's room and started stuffing his belongings into boxes. Thankfully, it was the off-season for moving, so I signed up for a plan that included packing assistance. The shipping went smoother than expected, and soon, only my belongings remained. My parents came over promptly upon my request, and we completed the move swiftly. While packing Kyle's room, I stumbled upon something unexpected, an incomplete divorce form. It appeared Kyle had already started the process to leave me for Jessica. Seeing an opportunity, I filled in the remaining sections of the form and decided to keep it safe. Just then, my phone rang. It was my mother-in-law. "Ashley, I knew some belongings were coming, but I didn't expect so many." "What happened?" she asked anxiously. "Actually, Kyle has been having an affair. Do you remember Jessica from high school? It seems he had a child with her," I revealed, sensing her shock on the other end of the line. While I sympathized with her, I continued. "Unfortunately, I have evidence." I sent her the photo I had taken in the hospital room showing Jessica with the baby, with Kyle standing beside them. "I don't want to believe it, but it's true." "I don't want to believe it either, but it's the truth," my mother-in-law admitted quietly. "I'm going to stay at my parents' house starting tonight," I informed her. After trying unsuccessfully to reach Kyle, my mother-in-law seemed troubled. She asked if I knew his whereabouts. Unable to contain my emotions, I blurted out, "He's no longer family to me." My mother-in-law seemed to understand my decision. That night, I took my belongings and returned to my childhood home, where I slept peacefully in my old room. The next morning, I received a message from Kyle. "Hey, the house is empty and there's a for sale sign up." "What's going on?" he asked. "Don't you understand? Your home isn't there anymore. For now, I've sent your things to your parents' house," I replied, firm in my decision to move forward without him. "I'm changing the locks tomorrow, so coming back will be pointless," I informed Kyle firmly. "What have you done? Let's talk, at least." "I suppose we must. I'll come to your parents' house this afternoon. I'll contact your mother myself," Kyle responded urgently. I quickly ended the call and began preparing to go out that afternoon. Soon, all the relevant parties gathered at Kyle's parents' house. Kyle's parents, my parents, Kyle, and myself. My mother-in-law looked particularly pale but bravely started the conversation. "Kyle, is it true that you're having an affair with your friend Jessica?" she asked directly. "An affair? No, Mom, we just started dating late, that's all," Kyle replied, attempting to downplay the situation. I'm not interested in excuses, and there's a child involved too. It seems you're quite compatible, my mother-in-law retorted sharply. The next moment, she shocked us all by punching Kyle. How could you do this? Ashley is pregnant with your child? How can you face her? She cried out in anguish. It was the first time I had seen Kyle's usually calm and sophisticated mother act like this. A trickle of blood ran from Kyle's nose, but he seemed unaware. Ow, what was that for? It's natural for a child to be born to a couple in love. How can you say such a thing? My mother-in-law continued, her voice trembling with emotion. Intervening in the argument, I spoke up. First of all, why did you even start dating Jessica? Kyle hesitated before answering. I ran into her at the station while I was out on sales calls. She had just returned to the US and was busy with her new job. She had a charm that you don't have. That doesn't sound like a reason to start dating. I've actually liked Jessica since high school, but I thought she was out of my league, so I settled for you. Kyle admitted selfishly, leaving me speechless at his blunt honesty. When I met Jessica again and we talked about the past, I realized she didn't think badly of me. There was no reason not to be together, Kyle added, revealing that he had kept his marriage to me a secret from Jessica. He had considered divorcing me when Jessica got pregnant, but around the same time, meeting at Kyle's parents' house, I had become pregnant too. Kyle didn't have the courage to divorce or the resolve to remarry, so things continued as they were. How can you be so selfish? Aren't you ashamed of juggling two women? Jessica and Ashley are completely different, Kyle's mother exclaimed, her anger palpable. Meeting Jessica again made me realize how unsatisfied I was with Ashley. I plan to remarry Jessica and step up as a man, Kyle responded defensively. Don't joke. I'm ashamed to call someone like you my son, his mother retorted angrily. If that's how you feel, we will sever our parent-child relationship. You're fired from the company too. From now on, live on your own. I don't care. I wondered silently. Kyle had always worked in our small family business. Would he be able to handle a different job? You don't understand anything. The only reason you could work until now was thanks to Ashley's beauty salon, his mother accused. Ashley's salon? That small country shop didn't have much to do with my performance, Kyle argued defensively. The only reason you managed to get any results was because Ashley's salon was promoting our products, you ungrateful person. His father interjected, his disappointment evident. They had been silently listening to the conversation until now. They declared regretfully that they would stop doing business with Kyle's company. It can't be helped. I'll start a new business. I'm still young, and if I study, I can do anything. Jessica will return to work soon after giving birth, so our new life will be secure, Kyle muttered into his smartphone. So he says. Suddenly Jessica's voice loudly exclaimed over the speaker. I had been connected to Jessica via a video call from the beginning of the meeting. Are you stupid? If I had known you were married to Ashley, I would never have dated you. I can't believe I ended up betraying Ashley too. Jessica continued, her disappointment and frustration evident. Your lack of foresight in this conversation is astonishing. Frankly, you have no talent as a business person, Jessica concluded, her tone cutting and final. I contacted Ashley and decided to join the discussion. I'm glad I listened in. I never want to see you again. Wait, don't leave me. Why should I stay with someone as awful as you? Kyle pleaded desperately. I'll raise the baby on my own, but I'll be taking child support, Jessica declared firmly. Kyle seemed to realize there was no convincing her. He turned to me, his face stained with dried blood, and begged, Ashley, I was wrong. Forget everything and let's raise our child together. I refuse to continue a marriage with such a scoundrel. I can't forget the terrible things you've done, I replied coldly, recalling the shock of seeing Kyle in Jessica's hospital room. Don't be so stubborn. Aren't you supposed to be the kind one? Kyle looked at me desperately. Shaking my head slowly, I said, it's too convenient for you to come back to me just because things didn't work out with Jessica. But you'll have trouble raising the child on your own, won't you? I have a profession, and a father like you is more of a hindrance than a help. I'm not foolish enough to cling to a useless man. Having already discussed everything with my parents, who were fully supportive and had connections through their business, I presented the divorce papers I have found in Kyle's drawer. As you can see, I've prepared the divorce papers. All that's left is to submit them. Let's quickly settle the property division and child support. Wait, I have to pay Jessica and now you too. Kyle's face fell as reality set in. Of course, I'm still your wife after all, but don't think you can neglect Jessica either. We have lawyers ready, I replied firmly. Kyle buried his face in his hands. Suddenly, I felt an unfamiliar pain in my abdomen. Ow, it hurts. At that moment, I realized I was going into labor. The meeting adjourned abruptly and my parents rushed me to the hospital. Exhausted from the emotional turmoil of the meeting and childbirth, I collapsed into bed and slept deeply. Even when the nurses woke me, I was hardly aware. After being discharged, I returned to my parents' house with my baby. My mother, a discreet beautician, spread the word about Kyle's actions among her clients, primarily housewives. Her few words quickly spread throughout the town. Meanwhile, Kyle attempted to start an online sales company, underestimating the power of personal connections and relying on the internet. However, his abilities fell short compared to the strength of word of mouth. Unable to secure bank funding due to the rumors, his business failed to launch. Another blow came from Jessica, who had recorded the entire confrontation via video call. She edited Kyle's self-centered behavior into a short video and shared it with her high school classmates. As a result, Kyle lost all his friends and any remaining support. Left to fend for himself, Kyle was kicked out of his parents' house and ended up living in an internet cafe, depleting his savings. Struggling to find work and housing as an unemployed man with no fixed address, he eventually moved to a distant area. Kyle managed to find day labor but struggled with unfamiliar physical work. There was no mercy for him. I warned him that missing even one child support payment would lead to legal action for assaulting me while pregnant. The photos I took of my injuries and the medical records from the hospital visit would be substantial evidence. Submitting the divorce papers, I became a single mother almost simultaneously with giving birth. But I was not alone. I found a larger apartment and decided to live with Jessica. The four of us, Jessica, me, and our babies, started a new life together. The children get along like siblings, and Jessica and I, always best friends, grew even closer. With Kyle out of the picture, we supported each other with childcare, making work and personal time manageable. We're planning to make our public debut together when the kids are a bit older. For now, we're enjoying this comfortable life. I'm sorry to hear that. Here's a rewritten version. In the midst of our wedding ceremony, a shocking disruption shattered the serene atmosphere. My mother-in-law, with an air of audacity, seized the microphone from my father-in-law mid-speech. Her words cut through the air like a blade. I apologized for my daughter's lack of beauty. The guests shifted uncomfortably as her declaration hung in the air, a bitter contrast to the joyous occasion. I glanced at my husband, hoping for support, only to be met with a chilling smirk. My senses reeled as I struggled to comprehend the sudden turn of events. A voice, firm and resolute, broke the stunned silence. An older gentleman rose from his seat, his actions commanding attention. "Is that all?" he demanded, his gaze piercing. Without waiting for an answer, he approached me with purpose. Recognizing him, my husband's expression betrayed a mix of surprise and fear. Before I could gather my thoughts, the man took my arm and ushered me away from the chaos. "Let's leave," he said gently, leading me through the corridors, away from the unwanted spectacle of our wedding day. A whirlwind of thoughts swept through my mind, painting a vivid picture of my life. My name is Angela, a 35-year-old woman shaped by the tumultuous currents of my past. Raised in a single-parent household after my parents' divorce during my elementary school years, I became intimately acquainted with resilience and responsibility from a tender age. In my 20s, life took an unexpected turn when my mother fell ill, requiring my devoted care. Days melded into nights as I juggled the demands of work and the duties of a caregiver, my world revolving around her needs. Despite the challenges, I persevered, driven by love and duty. As the years passed, still unmarried in my 30s, fate intervened in the form of Stephen. A chance encounter at my office, where I manned the reception desk, blossomed into something more profound. Stephen, a man of kindness and understanding, saw beyond the complexities of my life and extended a hand of love. His proposal, offered despite the weight of my caregiving responsibilities, stirred a maelstrom of emotions within me. Could I dare to embrace happiness while tethered to the obligations of my past? Dope nodded my resolve, a relentless companion in the journey of love. Yet Stephen's unwavering support shattered the walls of my uncertainty. With tender words, he laid bare his heart, offering not just a partnership, but a promise of inclusion. "Let us be a family of 3, he proposed, a beacon of light in the darkness of my doubts. Moved by his heartfelt proposal, I made the decision to marry Stephen. However, when we shared the news with our parents, the reactions couldn't have been more contrasting. While my mother overflowed with joy, Stephen's mother, whom we'll call Ruth, responded with cutting disdain. During our first visit to Steve's home as an engaged couple, Ruth's words pierced the air like arrows. "I must be frank, I don't consider a woman from a single-parent family suitable for my son," she declared, her tone laced with contempt. As we embarked on wedding preparations, Ruth's hostility persisted, veiled in sarcasm and barbed remarks. Her comments, dripping with disdain, chipped away at my resolve. Despite her relentless jabs, I held my ground, refusing to allow her insults to go unchallenged. "I can endure your insults, but I won't tolerate you speaking ill of my mother," I asserted firmly, meeting her venomous words with unwavering strength. Yet Ruth's attacks only escalated, accusing me of using deceit to ensnare her son and casting unfounded aspersions on my family. Faced with her baseless accusations, I stood my ground, defending my honor and that of my loved ones. Though the road ahead seemed fraught with challenges, I refused to allow Ruth's bitterness to tarnish the love Stephen and I shared. With each attempt to assert myself, Ruth's venomous retorts intensified, leaving me feeling increasingly powerless. The thought of confiding in Steve crossed my mind, but I couldn't bear to burden him with unnecessary worries as we embarked on our journey into married life. Ruth's audacity reached new heights as she began to meddle in our wedding plans, even intruding upon the sacred ritual of selecting a wedding dress. Sitting alongside my husband, she boldly declared her intent to choose the gown herself. Steve, oblivious to the tension, praised his mother's sense of style and eagerly supported her involvement. "I appreciate your gesture, but I want the freedom to choose a dress that resonates with me personally," I asserted gently, refusing to relinquish control over a decision so deeply personal. "I traveled all this way for you, only to be met with disappointment," my mother-in-law lamented, her words dripping with hurt. My husband's immediate defense of her, always swift to side with her, especially when she portrayed herself as the victim, stung deeply. Yet, when it came to the wedding dress, a symbol of my joy and individuality, I couldn't yield. "I understand, but I must choose my own dress. This moment is too important to compromise on," I affirmed resolutely, unwilling to sacrifice my vision for the sake of appeasing others. Despite her reluctance, my mother-in-law relented, though her resentment lingered. As the morning of the wedding dawned, her simmering animosity erupted into a shocking display of cruelty. "What a dreadful dress! And the veil? Tasteless," she scoffed upon encountering my chosen attire in the dressing room. Her words cut deep, a venomous attack on the culmination of my dreams. Despite my rising distress, I endeavored to maintain composure, determined to sidestep any turmoil on my special day. My mother, who adores sewing, crafted this veil with love. We selected the dress together, and I truly adore it, I explained evenly, hoping to diffuse the tension. But my attempt at peace was shattered as my mother-in-law's eyes widened with fury. In an instant, her calm facade crumbled, replaced by a storm of rage. With a sudden motion, she produced a can of coffee from her purse, unleashing its contents onto my beloved dress. Shock paralyzed me as the dark liquid stained the pristine fabric, rendering it unsalvageable. Desperation gripped me as I reached for a nearby towel, but my efforts proved futile against the irreversible damage. "This is the consequence of disobedience," she spat, her voice dripping with malice. With a final decree, she declared my attire unfit for the occasion, leaving me with no choice but to comply with her demands. As she exited the dressing room, her vindictive act hung heavy in the air, a bitter reminder of the power she wielded over my happiness. She must have deliberately brought the canned coffee, plotting to ruin my dress all along, evident from the fact that she had another dress prepared. Fueled by a mix of anger and frustration, I trembled with disbelief at her calculated cruelty. Seeking solace, I retreated to the separate waiting room where my husband awaited, tears streaming down my cheeks as I recounted the ordeal. "This is utterly unfair. It's going to cast a shadow over our entire wedding. What would you like me to do about it?" he snapped, his frustration palpable. Before I could finish, he cut me off, his voice rising in anger. His sudden outburst mirrored the venomous intensity of his mother's actions. Stunned by his abrupt shift in demeanor, I recoiled, taken aback by the harshness of his words. Yet just as swiftly as his anger erupted, it dissipated, replaced by a sense of remorse. "I'm sorry. I didn't mean to lash out like that. I'm just feeling overwhelmed," he apologized, his agitation evident as he wiped beads of sweat from his brow. Despite his apology, a pang of guilt gnawed at me for burdening him with my troubles on such a momentous day. In an effort to diffuse the tension, I opted to lend an ear to my husband's concerns. "You seem really stressed. What's going on?" I inquired gently, hoping to offer some support. "It's a bit chaotic. The CEO of my company unexpectedly decided to attend our wedding. It's a long story, but basically, he heard about our wedding from Steven's boss, who happened to meet him here at the hotel," my husband explained, his voice tinged with apprehension. "And to top it off, one of my colleagues fell ill last minute, so they invited the CEO to fill in." The coincidence was certainly striking, and I couldn't help but see the potential career implications. "It's quite the opportunity. Your skills might just earn you a promotion," I remarked, though I couldn't shake the feeling of frustration at his dismissive tone. Realizing the futility of arguing with him in his current state, I chose to withdraw from the conversation, allowing him to stew in his own thoughts. With the wedding ceremony underway, we exchanged vows atop the hotel's rooftop, the picturesque setting providing a serene backdrop to our union. As the moments passed without incident, a sense of relief washed over me, the earlier turmoil momentarily forgotten. However, the tranquility was short-lived, shattered by the impending family speeches at the reception. My mother-in-law's words cut through the air like a blade, leaving me seething with anger and indignation. Despite my father-in-law's attempts to intervene, she persisted, clutching the microphone tightly as she unleashed her vitriol for all to hear. Just as I reached my breaking point, a middle-aged man rose from his seat with determined resolve, striding purposefully towards me. "You don't deserve to endure this," he declared, his gaze fixed squarely on my mother-in-law. Without hesitation, he extended a guiding hand, leading me away from the escalating confrontation. My mother-in-law's outrage was palpable as she recoiled at the interruption to her tirade. However, her fury paled in comparison to the shock that rippled through the room as the man's identity was revealed. "Who dares to interrupt my speech?" she exclaimed, her indignation faltering as she realized the stature of the man before her. Beside her, Stephen's complexion drained of color as the truth dawned upon him. In a whirlwind of confusion, we hastily retreated from the reception hall, leaving the chaos behind. Sweating profusely and visibly flustered, Stephen struggled to regain his composure as we sought refuge in the relative privacy of the dressing room. "Why is my father here?" I gasped, the revelation sending shockwaves through my already tumultuous world. "That's correct. Stephen's company's CEO is also my biological father. The dissolution of my parents' marriage stemmed from irreconcilable differences. Their constant conflicts, exacerbated by their shared workplace, led them to part ways in the belief that it was for my well-being. Despite the divorce, they maintained sporadic contact over the years. I had grown accustomed to seeing my father several times a month, his consistent child support ensuring my needs were met as I transitioned into adulthood. Even when my mother fell ill, he remained a steadfast presence, offering support in various forms, fostering a strong bond between us. Yet the revelation of his position as Stephen's boss caught me off guard. "I never knew my father was the CEO of Stephen's company," I murmured, grappling with the unexpected twists of fate. His sudden appearance at my wedding, contrary to his prior commitment to a business engagement, only added to the bewildering turn of events. "Why did you come if you had an important meeting?" I questioned, perplexed by his change in plans. "My meeting concluded earlier than anticipated. I couldn't miss the opportunity to give you this gift in person," he explained, his presence offering a glimmer of solace amidst the chaos. As I made my way to the entrance, I encountered an employee who revealed an unexpected twist. My father was the boss Stephen had mentioned. Learning of the wedding through routine preparations for a gift, my father seized the chance to attend upon discovering the vacant seat due to a last-minute cancellation. "Why didn't you tell me?" I questioned, feeling a mix of surprise and confusion at his secrecy. "After discussing with your mother, we thought it would be a delightful surprise. I never anticipated it would unfold like this," my father confessed, a tinge of sadness clouding his expression. Before I could delve deeper into the matter, the dressing room door swung open, revealing my mother-in-law's ominous presence. Her saccharine tone sent shivers down my spine as she attempted to coerce me back into the fold. The realization that she must have learned of my father's identity from her husband's revelation sent a chill through me. "Who do you think caused all of this?" "It was just a harmless joke," she declared, her attempt at levity falling flat in the face of my father's unexpected appearance. "How dare you make such a tasteless joke at my daughter's expense? It's unforgivable," my father shot back, his indignation mirroring my own. "What? So, it wasn't a jest after all? You genuinely called my daughter ugly?" My father's confrontational tone left my mother-in-law stumbling for words, her feeble attempts at evasion falling flat. In a flurry of urgency, my husband burst into the room, his hurried footsteps echoing in the tense atmosphere. He knelt before my father, seeking to atone for his mother's transgressions. "I apologize for my mother's indiscretion," he implored. "You're apologizing to the wrong person." My father's icy gaze bore down on my husband, his words laced with disappointment and reproach. "Angela, I'm sorry. My mother acted independently," my husband addressed me, his voice tinged with regret. "If that's true, then why didn't you intervene when she insulted me?" I demanded, my shock rendering me immobile. "And your father attempted to intervene," I added, incredulous. "But you seemed content to sit back and watch," I accused, my voice trembling with hurt and betrayal. "You're mistaken. My demeanor was misconstrued. Regardless, the sole responsibility lies with my mother," my husband insisted, his defense ringing hollow in the wake of his mother's egregious behavior. My husband erupted, his accusatory finger aimed squarely at his mother. "Stephen, are you turning against your own mother? We agreed to teach this insolent wife a lesson together, didn't we? Hey, enough with the unnecessary remarks. You said we needed to put this wife, who refuses to let mama have her way with the dress, in her place. Keep quiet." My husband silenced his mother, his hand muffling her protests in a somewhat comical fashion. "Now, care shed some light on this situation?" I prodded, my voice edged with urgency. "No, this was my mother's doing alone. It's for your own benefit, frankly." "At this point, don't you think?" My husband's response faltered as my father interjected, his probing gaze compelling him to speak. "When Angela insisted on choosing her wedding dress, my mother suggested she would become disobedient if not disciplined properly." My husband finally confessed, his tone tinged with reluctance. "What's wrong with choosing my own dress? Isn't it natural for a wife to heed her mother-in-law's wishes? If you can't even manage that, I feared you might become an obstinate wife who defies her husband in the future," my mother-in-law interjected, her words dripping with disdain. "Marriage is a partnership of equals, isn't it? There's no hierarchy. If I can't control you, what's the use of marrying someone on the brink of aging?" My husband's admission hung heavy in the air, shattering the illusion of love and commitment. The truth spilled forth. He hadn't chosen me out of affection for who I am, but as a convenient pawn in his game. All his declarations of caring for my mother, of wanting to forge a family together, were they all falsehoods? "Of course, you had a tidy sum tucked away, didn't you? I had plans to use that to build a duplex. I envisioned you toiling away like a servant while my mother and I enjoyed our happiness. But now, it's all gone to waste." His words dripped with bitterness, revealing the depths of his deception. Once my husband unleashed his true feelings, there was no reining him in. His desire for control extended to draining our savings, a selfish act that left me reeling in disbelief. His expression shifted from assertive to shocked as he realized the gravity of his words. "Wait, no, I didn't mean that. It's over. I can't have a wife who won't spend money or serve me," he stuttered, attempting to backtrack. "Stop. I won't tolerate such disrespect," I declared, my resolve firm. "I can't marry someone who views me as nothing more than a servant." His composure shattered, my husband paced nervously, grappling with the reality of our crumbling relationship. Then, as if struck by sudden clarity, he proposed a feeble solution. "But our wedding is today. We can't call it off now," he reasoned, desperate to salvage the situation. "I'll handle the guests and their gifts. Since your mother's actions led to this, you'll cover the expenses," I countered, refusing to shoulder the blame for his family's interference. "You can't be serious. This breakup is your fault for overreacting to a single incident with my mom," he retorted, his words dripping with defensiveness. "All the hurtful things you've said to me, they're all here," he added, pointing accusingly at me. Retrieving my smartphone from my purse, I pressed play, unleashing a barrage of hurtful words in my mother-in-law's own voice. "Poor, ugly, harsh woman. Each insult echoed through the room, a damning testament to her cruelty. When did I record all this? I'm not naive, I declared, my resolve unyielding. I'll be seeking compensation for the emotional distress you've caused. I was merely trying to discipline my daughter-in-law. I've done nothing wrong, my mother-in-law protested weakly. If you won't pay willingly, I'll see you in court. Let's see if you'll repeat those words before a judge. This isn't a laughing matter. Realizing the precariousness of her position, my mother-in-law paled, her defiance crumbling. I'll also be reconsidering your position at the company, I added, turning to address my father-in-law. With this final blow, my husband's facade shattered, his resolve crumbling as he sank to his knees. I'm sorry, Angela. Please forgive me, he pleaded, his voice thick with remorse. That's right, Angela. You're already married. You can't just throw it away so easily. If we work together, we can overcome this obstacle and have a great future together, my husband and mother-in-law pleaded desperately. Shrugging off their attempts at reconciliation, I fixed them with a steely glare. Enough of your deceitful words. You're both despicable, I spat before storming out of the dressing room. Keeping true to my word, I proceeded to dissolve my engagement with Stephen and filed a lawsuit against my mother-in-law for the emotional torment she caused. The financial burden of the failed wedding fell squarely on my ex-husband's shoulders, serving as a harsh reminder of the consequences of his actions. Word of the debacle spread through his workplace, resulting in his ostracization by colleagues. Under my father's directive, he was relocated to a distant branch in Nebraska, effectively demoting him. My ex-mother-in-law faced scorn from her own relatives for sullying their family's reputation with a divorce. Meanwhile, my ex-father-in-law wasted no time in ejecting her from their home. As for me, I redirected my focus to my career, having no desire to entertain the notion of marriage again. Over time, my parents found solace and our family relationships flourished once more with occasional gatherings over dinner. Today, I lead a fulfilling and content life.